Hello everyone. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are very much audible. Hello, sir. How are you? Dr. Chandramouli.
Oh, good morning. Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. It's audible.
Yes, sir. Yes. So greetings and good wishes to our eminent resource person, Mr. Prakash Goossens, and all the delegates of the International Faculty Development Program on Global Vision for Academic Excellence, jointly organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell and Center for International Academic Network, School of Social Work, Roshni Nilaya, Mangaluru. We are in the fourth day of the Faculty Development Program, and today, to enlighten us on a very important theme, globalization and academic diplomacy, future of partnerships, we have Mr. Prakash Goossens, international representative of Fracarita International, Belgium. And Dr. Sebastian KV, extending a warm welcome to you, along with our management, principal, vice principal, HODs, and all of us here. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
The delegates are the determining factor of the success of any event. Let me extend a sincere welcome to each one of you, our dear delegates. Speaking about our resource person, a name is worth 1,000 conversations. Mr. Prakash Goossens is a Belgian of Indian origin, born in Kerala, India. He was adopted at the age of 8 and grew up further in Ternate. He studied law and international politics at the Catholic University, Brussels, and the Catholic University, Leuven. He completed his studies at the University Robert Schumann in Strasbourg and at the University Catholic de Leuven. After his studies, he completed internships at the European Union and the United Nations. He worked as a legal advisor at the umbrella organization of Catholic Education Flanders. Sir currently works as an international representative at Fracarita International, an international NGO of the Brothers of Charity, active in mental health care, education, and care for the disabled. In this position, he regularly travels to India. Mr. Goossens is also a member of the executive board of Orbit, a non-profit organization that focuses on interfaith encounters, just migration policy, cooperation in diversity, and an effective approach to racism. He is an employee of the David Fonts Academy and the Flemish Foundation in the world. He is also the founder and chairman of Side by Side India. He traveled extensively to different countries like Sri Lanka, Indonesia, India, United States of America, Ireland, Italy, UK, Switzerland, Canada, Rwanda to give lectures, to promote, to give presentations, and taking part in negotiations regarding mental health on behalf of Fracarita International. He teaches also globalization and impact on NGO and interreligious dialogue in the MA Social Doctrine of the Church, Rome and Belgium. He is a member of the board of Orbit, welcoming migrants and asylum seekers in Belgium. He is also member of the board of the Flemish Cultural Association, David Fonts, and in this regard, he gives lectures about his native country, India, and builds tours for Belgian people in India. He is keen on policy, giving trainings, making on consultancy and advising in the field of mental health education for governments, NGOs, developing CSR policies for multinationals, etc. Mr. Goossens, regions of interest include Africa, South America, and Asia. Once again, a warm welcome to you, sir, and over to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sebastian. I would like to say thank you that I'm invited to give a lecture on what I'm busy with. I would like to say hello to all my friends in Mangalore. So I'm sure they will know me, especially the sisters and everyone who is in the board and the management of the School of Social Work in Mangalore. I have very good souvenirs of my visit to this beautiful university in Mangalore. So, and I'm very pleased that even in COVID time, we are able to have this kind of conversations internationally in a globalized way. And that the School of Social Work in Mangalore is making the best out of this COVID situation for our fellow citizens, students in India. So I hope it will work to share my presentation with you. If there are any questions or any remarks, please, you can put it on the message boxes and I will hopefully and I'm able to answer it after the conversation, not during the lecture, because that is too much confusion. So please, you are invited to ask questions or presentations. So I will share my presentation now. Let me see how it works here. I think this one will work. So I don't know if you can see this.
It's visible. Yes, it's visible.
Is it visible?
Yes.
So I will start with, of course, the topic of this lecture, academic diplomacy and partnerships in a globalized world. Mr. Sebastian referred to my home place, which is Belgium. You see, it's a small... Hello? So Mr. Sebastian referred to my place, which is Belgium. And as you can see in Europe, it's in the heart of Europe, close to UK, France, Germany, the Netherlands. It's a very small country of 11 million inhabitants. But it is a vital country inside the European Union because it's the capital, which is Brussels, of the European Union. Picasso did not wait until he was Picasso to paint like Picasso. Why do I start with this? Because you can say that excellence and influence into the world is mainly based on how you see the world, how you see the other, and how do you interact with the other, and with your talents and with your capabilities. Picasso did not wait until he was Picasso to paint like Picasso. Keep this in mind when we talk about academic excellence and about academic diplomacy, the influence that you can have as a School of Social Work into the world. So we will discuss about the impact of colonization, imperialism, and globalization on the way how we look, how we think about ourselves and the other, and how this impacts on our educational system. If you look to this slide, you will see that these are actually the world map where you see the colonized world before 1945. You see that India, Pakistan, Burma, and so on were part of the British Empire. You see the French Empire, the Dutch Empire, the Belgian Empire, the Spanish, the Italian, the Japanese, and finally, after 1945, the American Empire, which actually still exists. And that is important to know because from colonialism, we shift to imperialism. Now, what is imperialism? Imperialism means the creation and or maintenance of an unequal economic, cultural, and territorial relationship, usually between states and often in the form of an empire. based on domination and subordination. This is clear that in our actual situation after the Cold War, that we are on the hegemony of the United States of America, the European Union, or even the West. And you see a gradually showing up of China into display, but the other countries like India or Africa continent or Latin America are not yet there. There is still the impact of Russia, but you can easily say that the West is dominating at this moment the relationships in the world. And that has an impact on education. And I refer here to the Marxist philosopher Antonio Gramsci. He proposed the idea of cultural hegemony, whereby a cultural diverse society can be dominated by a social class whose dominance is achieved by manipulating the beliefs, perceptions, and values of that culture, so that the dominating influence and views are imposed as the norm. This is very important to understand the evolution from colonization, imperialism, and we'll talk about globalization, how educational imperialism is impacting the way how we think about ourselves, about us, about the other, and the interaction between all this network. The dominating influence and views are imposed as the norm. So the so-called free will in education or even in the globalized world is quite relative. Globalization, what does it mean? You see here a picture, a cartoon of the impact, the tsunami, the wave of globalization, which is swiping away the local culture, the local traditions, the local way of thinking, the local philosophies, habits, methods of living. And it's based on social class, is based on caste, is based on religion, is based on economic possibilities and cultural hegemonism. If we look to the globalized world at this moment, we are, of course, in a digital way, which we call the globalization 3.0. Internet, artificial intelligence are dominating the way how we look to globalization at this world. And you see here the map is not the map of the universe, but is the map of internet. And you are just a small dot in that network, huge network, where you have the dominance of global multinational players like Google, like Facebook, like Twitter, like TikTok, and others. These are impacting the way how you think, how you work. And the question will come when we talk about education and the School of Social Works or universities. How do we interact in this very complex network of dominance, of colonization, imperialism, and globalization? I want to refer to Professor Joseph Ney on his concept of soft power. You all know what hard power means. Hard power means that you use the economic and military forces to subordinate others, to make dominance of others. And soft power is something different. And soft power is very important in a globalized world. And what is it? Well, what is the definition? Ability to shape the preferences of others based on culture, political values, and foreign policies. Culture is in places where it is attractive to others. Political values is when it lives up when it lives up to them at home and abroad. Foreign policies when others see them as legitimate and having moral authority. I will give you an example what we mean by this. But this is the definition that you have to keep in mind when we talk about diplomacy, and especially academic diplomacy. Academic diplomacy is an example of using the concept of soft power in foreign policies, in political values, and in cultural interaction. The example that I want to give, the obvious would be India, but I said no, I will take China, because the growing, emerging power in Asia is China. And China's soft power initiatives are quite remarkable. For example, hosting global events in Beijing, the Olympics, the Shanghai World Expo, promoting scholarly exchanges. This China Scholarships Council is huge, is impacting in the West, and it has a real influence. The Institute of Confucius Institutes. As you know, India has some kind of similar, but not quite elaborated as the Chinese. The Rabindranath Tagore Institutes, but that is not that much impacting as the Confucius Institutes. All the international media agencies, China is impacting more and more the international media. And the co-productions in media, especially in films, movies, television programs, and online games, but also in apps, also in made in China things, as you know, Huawei or others like TikTok is a very important way of looking into it. You see here some of the impacts of soft power in cartoons, in movies, in advertisements, Pokemon, Hello Kitty, and others, mangas. You see the Gangnam Style. I don't know if you know this. I will try to see if I can share it with you. Let me see. I have it here somewhere. I think it's this one. Then you will see what we are talking about. And it continues like this, and you can see these kind of music styles. I will try to share my PowerPoint again. Let me see how I can do that. Yeah, here it is. This kind of internationally known, let me see here. Next time. Yeah, internationally known music styles are influencing our youth, our generations, but also the way how we look to others. I'm sure you know this Gangnam Style. Maybe the older generations, they don't know, but the younger generation knows very well. You see the impact of the West on how we think on all these kind of movies. In India, we know very well Bollywood. But if you look to the rest of the world, they know very well Hollywood and all the influence and impact that it has on our younger generation. football, soccer is quite known. The media on Netflix, on James Bond, on the Lord of the Rings, of Harry Potter, these are influencing the way how we think, even though it is not our culture, and that is important to know. Before I continue, I want to show you another aspect that you all know also is, let me see, where you see the influence of the West on the rest. I think it's here. This one. I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you know this video clip about Jerusalem. It's sung and danced everywhere globally, from Antarctica to India to Indonesia and US. But these are all impacts of cultural domination, of a certain way of looking into globalized perspectives. When we come to academic excellence and academic diplomacy, knowing what is happening, colonization, imperialism, globalization, cultural dominance, educational imperialism, how does this affect the way how we look to our own education system? And what does it mean for the way how we take academic diplomacy? So there are actually in our higher education system 4 scenarios. Either you are international, either you are market demand driven, you are national, or administration supply driven. We will talk about this. Is this working? In these 4 scenarios, you have an open networking, serving local communities, new public responsibility, and higher education as a market-driven way of looking into it. When we look to the first scenario, you have what we call the open networking. Who are the drivers? International cooperation and harmonization of systems, technology, ideal of open knowledge. The features are that there is an intensive networking among institutions, scholars, students, and also industries. There's a modular way of studying under academic control, and there is an extensive international collaborative research on that. Strong hierarchy between network, but quick spillovers and spin-offs, and a lifelong learning outside the higher education sector. Related developments are, and I'm talking about what happened in the European Union, the Bologna process, international academic partnerships and consortia, and the increasing computing power and culture of openness challenging traditional intellectual property rights. This is what we call the scenario 1 in academic diplomacy, the open networking. Second is serving local communities. The drivers are actually the anti-globalized movement, because the local communities, they say, we don't feel attached to this globalized way of looking into it. And more strategic sensitivity in research, and to look to cost efficiency. The features are focusing on national and local missions, public funding and control of the academic profession, convergence between universities and polytechs, elite universities struggle to stay more internationalized, less research, mainly on humanities, big science relocated to government sector, more secretive and less internationalized work. I think what is happening in India is that we are, unfortunately, in this scenario too. We will look into it. Third scenario is new public responsibility. The pressure on public budget because of aging, because of public debt, etc. Diffusion of governance structures based on new public management. The features of this kind of scenario is mainly public funding, but autonomous institutions controlled at arm's length, incentives and accountability. Mixed funding, new markets and more tuition fees, income contingent loans. Demand-driven system with more marked division of labor, specialization, but most higher education institutes continue to do some research. Research funds allocated through domestic competitive processes. In Europe, it's a different way, but globally, you can see that that is an important part of that. Related developments are autonomy given to higher education institutes, debates on cost sharing, of course, and encouragement of competition between higher education institutes. This was the situation of India before this government. I'm talking about the Prime Minister's government at this moment. But if you look to the governments before the actual federal government of India, you would end up in this scenario 3. And then you have what we call the American way of looking into higher education, which is the trade liberalization in education, the global competition for education and research services, public funding for non-commercial viable disciplines exclusively, segmentation of the education and research market, vocational higher education, important share of the market, strong international division of labor according to competitive advantage, concentration of research and worldwide competition for funding, English as main language of study. Related developments is rise of trade in higher education and inclusion of education in trade negotiations, international competition for students and increase of cross-border funding of research. If you look to scenario 1 and 4, that is where the West actually is, meaning open networking and higher education privatization. Most of the countries in Asia are also in higher education privatization and the influence and the dominance of public spending and public control and public censorship. This is important to know when we talk about academic diplomacy. If you put it on a network like this, then you see the open networking, the higher education, serving local communities, and new public responsibility. Either you are internationally driven or you are nationally driven, or you are more public administration driven or market driven. And these are the 4 scenarios in higher education we have to keep in mind. I want to give you an example of my own university, which is in Belgium. It's one of the oldest universities of Europe. It's in the University of 1425, the century, it is 15th century. It's a very highly known university into the world ranking, together with Coimbra, Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, Yale, and so on. As you can see, all these names are Western names of universities.
data-driven entrepreneurship has resulted in a dense network of high-tech companies in and around Leuven. Talented and highly educated people from all over the world work together in this hotspot for research and innovation, surrounded by culture and history. With 154 nationalities living in Leuven, the city has a distinctly international flavor. It is home to the University of Leuven, one of the oldest and most renowned universities in Europe. And the fast-growing International School of Leuven is educating the next generation of talented people. Leuven-Landgate is a welcoming place to live, study, and work, with great business, investment, and collaboration opportunities. And it just so happens to be the hometown of Stella Artois. Welcome to Leuven-Landgate.
Why do I show you this? Not just the promotion of my alma mater, the University of Louvain, but Louvain is an example of academic diplomacy on the highest level. And I will show you why. You know, maybe Leuven, I'm sure in Mangalore, Leuven, maybe some of you will know, but Leuven is quite known. And as you know, it's the hometown of Belgian beer. In the world. In Belgium, you have more than 700 beers, different beers, and it's globally. It's the international way. But it's also famous for its architecture, European architecture. This is the town hall, the city hall. It's the most innovative university of Europe. This is a ranking, is in the top 3 of the university level. And this all is not just by coincidence. It's thanks to academic diplomacy in a globalized world. It's the second largest academic hospital of Europe. Gasthuisberg, quite known for its research on it. World-leading research institutes like IMEC, where lots of Indians are working. And it's known for some kind of inventions. You know, this luggage, it's what we call a very light luggage system. It's invented in Louvain. Leuven is the most widely used anti-HIV medicine production and invention in the worldwide is coming from Louvain. The most varieties of bananas, you know, the plantanas, bananas, you will find in the research on that, you will find in Louvain. Most varieties of new apples you will find in Leuven. And of course, the Belgian chocolates, all different varieties you will find, of course, there. And the investment that the government has done on research, on biotech, on international collaboration, on academic collaboration has been fruitful to the ranking of your institute into the globalized world. So Louvain is in the top 10 of the most regarded research universities in the world. And as you can see, it's a region that invests in health, in high tech and creativity. And it's thanks to lots of collaborators, lots of employers that we could do this. 9,000 employees, 1,300 researchers, and so on in our health sector. It's European's fastest approval rating for clinical trials. High tech is very important, known here from IMEC, Materialize, Comscope, GuardScare, Siemens. And these are all internationally driven businesses. They have innovation, they have creativity, funded by the European Union for in artificial intelligence or in medical applications and so on. And it is a very beautiful atmosphere to work to study, to teach, and they invent lots of aspects. And it's all dealing with the courage, the political will to invest in research, in innovation. And it's thanks to the world, actually, because it's not the Belgian people only. It's actually different nationalities who are attracted to Europe, to London, to Louvain, to Berlin, to Paris, and so on, to work with the best knowledge. And of course, there's a negative side. As I said in the beginning, these are all impacts of colonization, of imperialism, of a globalized world. And of course, you cannot jeopardize individual dreams of people, but it creates also a brain drain from India, from China, from all other countries towards the European Union or to Japan or Australia or to the Canada and US. On the other hand, all the countries like India and China regains also from this kind of brain drain because it creates remittances, money flowing back to these countries. But you can feel that there is an imbalance. So for that, I think it's important as academic institutes like the School of Social Work in Bangalore that you invest in these academic partnerships, to be discussing this with your partners around the globe, where it's not only a matter of funding, it's not only a matter of finance, it's a matter of willingness, of political willingness in your school to be part of this globalized world. As you can see here, this is still Louvain. You see on the right hand corner up that Indians, lots of Indians are studying in Leuven. And it is actually a collaboration between knowledge institutions, companies, and governments who makes Leuven Mindgate the top of the world. Can Mangalore do this the same? Of course, but it's a matter of willingness. It's a matter of bringing together government, companies, and knowledge institutions like the School of Social Work in Mangalore to make this happening. It's not a one-day approach, it's a long-term approach. Long-term, that means at least 20 years. And that's the reason why China is very powerful when it comes to academic diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, soft power, because they foresee for the long term. When you come to India, you see the ambition to be part of the globalized world, to be a soft power in the world, to be part of the big countries in the world. But there are lots of challenges in the Indian society, which makes it very difficult to really be in the marathon or in the Olympics of globalized world. I gave you an example. If you look to the educational system in India, the federal government and the state governments invest in highly elite universities. And the rest of the universities and university colleges, they have to take care of their own, which is very short-term thinking about development of India. And I think the actual government in India is trying to catch up with China, but forgets that there is a massive, unskilled, young, uneducated group of Indians who don't benefit from these government schemes. And that is a very important handicap to be part of the international scene. The other thing is the soft power of India is used for political ideologies. Of course, China is using this also. But if you look to the academic diplomacy of China, it's much more technology and IT driven than the Indian soft diplomacy and academics. I've been so many times frustrated when it came to academic collaborations between Belgium and India, how the red tape in India is blocking real collaborations on this level and partnerships. So that's actually my advice to the School of Social Work is that when it comes to academic diplomacy, you have to do it your own with friends like me and friends that you have in the different countries outside of India to get really a reciprocal, respectful collaboration, which is not easy, but as I said, you have to look how China is doing this, and it is a long-term, step-by-step approach, which makes a good, enhanced, and sustainable collaboration. So that is an introduction, looking into the time also on this topic of academic diplomacy. I give you an examples of how the University of Louvain is really setting up partnerships in China, in India, in Lahti, in Heidelberg, in Netherlands, and so on. And it is really worthwhile to do that. You see here part of the collaborations, and it's an investment that we do in different countries. So I would like to thank you for this short introduction on academic diplomacy and partnerships in a globalized world. We see the challenges, we see the difficulties, but we see also the opportunities. And as I said clearly, Picasso did not wait until he was Picasso to paint like Picasso. Thank you very much for your attention. And I give back
Thank you very much, sir,
the floor.
for that very educative presentation. Now it is time for us to raise queries and clarifications. Delegates are requested to unmute yourself and ask your queries. Requesting Professor Liana Joseph to coordinate the question and answer session.
Thank you, Professor Prakash Goossens, for your insightful session on globalization and academic diplomacy. So I'm Mrs. Liana from the Postgraduate Department of Social Work, Roshni Nelia. And now we are open for discussions. So I request our dear participants to either post your questions on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and clarify.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we talk about what is called a smart city. What does it exactly refer to?
Smart city, as I understood because there is a different view on smart cities in Europe and in India. Smart cities in Europe is based on technology-driven, well-planned cities. And all new cities which is quite limited, of course, in Europe, have to be smart driven. Smart means technology, sustainable, ecologically driven devices and thinking. And it is more than just to put like what Abu Dhabi did, Masdar City. Masdar City is close to Abu Dhabi. It's a very green city, but if you go there, you don't find very smart city. It's only focused on one dimension of being smart, and that means keep the fuel-driven cars out of the city. Yeah, that is one aspect. But smart means you connect much more than that. I give you an example of where I'm living. I'm living close to Louvain. The small city is just 1 lakh inhabitants. There are no cars inside the city center, but it's more than that. It's really an ecological education of people to think that the health, that the air, that everything related to your well-being is important, and not just by just one measure, like saying we ban the car and so therefore we are a smart city, or we decrease the energy expenses in our city, so we are a smart city. And I think that the policies and the ideas of the Indian government when they started with all these new smart cities are good, but again, I think it's a one dimension based looking into smart cities.
Yes, correct. That is a reality.
That's a reality, yes.
Good afternoon, Dr. Prakash.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are planning to form an international level student consortium to work towards attaining sustainable development goals. Already we are in touch with the students from many countries. So what do you have to say about this?
I didn't get the beginning of what you said, Dr. Janice.
We are planning to form a student consortium at the international level, the aim of attaining sustainable development goals.
Yes. When you say
Top
international
strategies.
collaborations, Dr. Janice, which countries you are targeting?
The goals set by UN Assembly.
No. Which countries are you?
We have student volunteers from Germany, Rwanda, Australia. I'm in touch with the students from different universities. Just initiated the process. We are planning to inaugurate in the month of August.
Very nice. So it will be also online.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of you also. I'm sure you will support this.
Of course. No, but what I said is, of course, it's a very good idea, and to involve students from different countries in attaining and implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But I hope also, Dr. Janice, that you make the reflection from an Indian perspective on that. We should be proud as Indians, not arrogant, not in an imperial way that we are better than others, but to use our traditional philosophies coming out of the roots of what we are as India. We should not be ashamed of this. And I have the impression, that's why I gave in the introduction this very negative aspect of colonialism, imperialism, and how globalization is just a continuation of this. And I think as India, and especially as a school of social work, you should make this critical reflection also on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but from an Indian perspective, and not just copying, not just copying what the West is saying about UN development goals. I think it's important when you discuss this with the students from the School of Social Work.
There will be presenters from India also. Already like 100 students are volunteered from India, from different colleges.
But will you give also indigenous approaches on sustainability from the Indian perspective, and
Indian
not
perspective? Okay.
It's a very important that you, because otherwise you are just repeating what the West is saying about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I can assure you, the West is not the Holy Father. Is not. There are lots of things that are going wrong here because it's a very superior imperial way of we, the West, are better than others, which is not true. But we should not be ashamed to give our Indian perspective on sustainable development goals.
Definitely, yes.
Sir, there are questions on the chat box. Here is a question from Mr. Ashok Kumar. Kindly explain the red tapeism problem in India, especially academical view.
I didn't get the clear question. Who was saying this?
Mr. Ashok Kumar. So he has asked, kindly explain the red tapeism problem in India, especially academical view.
I try to see. Is it on the chat?
It's on the chat box, sir.
The timings at 5:12 p.m. He has asked a time 12 to 5 12 p.m. 5 o'clock 12 minutes he has asked this question. Time
Okay.
wise. Ashok
Yeah,
Kumar.
yeah, looking.
Time wise you can see. It is 5 o'clock 12 minutes he has asked the question.
Yeah,
Sir,
but
I can ask it again, if you allow me.
yes, please. Ashok is there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
When you were speaking, you said red tapeism in India is more, but that I have found in administration. But how that red tapeism is affecting from the point of academic? That was my question.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Mr. Ashok. So what I was referring to is I've been in so many academic partnerships with Indian universities and Indian schools of social work or others. You sign MOUs, especially when the government is involved, and then suddenly silence because of academic red tapes, because of hierarchy, because of other aspects related to culture, to the way how universities are organized. And that makes it very frustrating when you make MOUs, especially with universities where the government is controlling the board. You see that is very difficult to gain. I gave you an example with Delhi University, of Jawaharlal Nehru University, of Bombay University, of when it comes to private driven universities and schools of social work like yours, you don't have this red tape because you are working in a direct way with the board and you say this is what we agreed to do, to collaborate on that. When it comes to universities driven by government, I don't see much of success stories. What happens is that when it is a government-driven universities who work with government-driven universities in other countries, that works because that is government to government. But when a private initiative, like the Catholic University of Louvain, works with a Delhi university, it blocks on red tape, which we and that's this triangle, this quadrilateral aspect that I made. How you perceive yourself from your school of social work in this quadrant? How do you see it? You are administrative driven? Are you market driven? Are you international, national, or is a mix? Or you can, so that is some analysis you have to make, because whenever you go to academic partnerships outside your country, you have always to think, how do they think?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the European way of thinking when it comes to partnerships, when it comes to MOUs, when it comes to letter of intents? And you see lots of misunderstandings just because you don't understand where you are in this collaboration in academics. So that is important.
In global scenario, I suppose.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
That's I would suggest to the School of Social Work to really invest in someone who is giving the Western way of thinking, not to copy it, because the School of Social Work, like all other schools, are in the British way of thinking. It's already Western anyway, but I mean, whenever it comes to academic diplomacy, you should be able, as faculty members, as board, as vice chancellor, to understand how Europeans think, how Chinese think, how Americans think, because lots of collaborations blocks because you only come from your point of perspective.
Yes, yes, sir.
And we should overcome this by really studying how does an European think? How does, like someone from Germany thinks totally different than someone from India.
Okay.
But to get into the thinking of the other makes it much more easier to get a good collaboration.
Yes, sir. I got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So there is another question from Mr. Chandra Mauli. Please throw light on whether academic diplomacy lead to more and more multiculturalistic societies.
Multicultural?
Multiculturalistic societies. Please throw light on whether academic diplomacy lead to more and more multiculturalistic societies.
Yeah. That's a very good question in the sense that globalization is westernization. We don't like to hear it. We don't like to hear it. When I was at the UN, when I was at the European Union, when I was teaching in Rome or in Rwanda or whatever, when I make a provocative statement saying that actually globalization is just a continuation of Western colonialism, you feel offended, you feel not respected, you feel kind of, what am I doing here as Indian? Is just copying what the West says? And then when it comes to academic diplomacy, I hope you will avoid this big booby trap of just copying what the West says, how it should be. And the indigenous way of diplomacy of Indians should be much more into it. That doesn't mean that you have to know how the other think, but don't copy just what the West says. That's my experience when I go to Latin America, to China, to India, and so on. How many universities and colleges just copy what Oxford wants, what Cambridge wants, what Harvard wants, what Yale wants, and so on? No, we should be proud as Indians. We have our own redeemed universities and schools of social works and so on. And we should be much more proud in the correct way. Not nationalism, patriotism, and so on. That's something political. But I'm talking about academic diplomacy, saying, look, we are not inferior to the West. We are not inferior to China. We are not inferior to whatever culture or whatever academic views. We have our own way of looking into it. And I find it unfortunate that most of the universities in India just copy the British system, just copy the Western system. And we should be much more attentive and alertive for that. And we should be more proud of our own cultures and the way how we look to the world.
So that is another question from Mr. Bhima Rao. Please explain key competencies of teaching faculty of your university. Give us tips to develop the competencies of faculty to meet the global standards.
It's a very good question. Again, the key competencies of faculty. So I teach at the university in Louvain. First of all, you should be able to interact with students. If you are not able to interact with students, don't go into teaching. Second is you should be able to academic critical thinking. That means beyond your own studies. You should be able to be in a multidisciplinary way looking into the topics that you are teaching. Thirdly, you should be able to understand other languages. It's not only English who is the lingua franca, as they call it. We all think we speak English, and that's the reason why Indians are welcome everywhere, because they speak English. But it's not only that. You should be able to speak at least some kind of, as a sign, as a token of respect, some opening sentences in the other languages. When you go to China, when you come with English there, they will be friendly, but you can feel there is a barrier. When you speak a small token of out of respect, some Mandarin Chinese, it will help. And the same when you come to Europe, if you speak a little German or a little French or my language here, the Dutch language, it creates another bond than just continue in English. When I come to India, I try also to in all this multi-diverse linguistic India, try at least to say hello or thank you or whatever. And these are small signs, but it can create a big impact on how you have this profile of academics. And make sure that that whenever you go to academic partnerships on an international level, that you have faculty members who are really interested in the other cultures, who are really interested in the other universities and higher education in that countries, and not just for the sake, oh, I would like to go to Paris. It's very nice because I saw a Bollywood movie which was taken there, or in Switzerland, because I see all the time Indians in Switzerland. If I ask them why you are here in Switzerland, because you have the Kashmir Valley, you have the Himalayas, which are much nicer than Switzerland. So why you come here? Oh, because I saw in Bollywood is a very nice country. Very well, but it creates a very strange way of looking into visiting and so on. So it should not become a voyeurism. The academic diplomacy should not become voyeurism of faculty members who are keen to go to Europe, who are keen to go to US, who are keen to go to. No. There should be an added value in your missions when you go there. Whenever I go to all these countries, there should be a return on investment on what you are doing as academics, as faculty members, which are sent by your vice chancellor so it's not just tourism. Most people think academic diplomacy, oh, it's about tourism. No. Tourism is just your relaxation part when you are there, yes, but the main focus should be collaborations, research, innovative approaches, best practices, and to see how this can be used for the school or the university that you are sent for. So that is very important.
Thank you, sir. Next question. This is from Ms. Farita Vegas. What is your understanding of the new education policy in the view of academic diplomacy, especially giving out of certificates or diplomas at every stage of higher education? Will it not encourage unemployment?
Yes, I think so. It will it will decrease also the quality of degrees and diplomas. You can see it already in Europe. I'll give you an example. When I graduated, the degree of law was highly valued. If I look now, the degree of law is just one out of the other degrees. And that has to do with democratization of higher education. In Europe, there was a wave of democratization. What does it mean? Everyone has access to universities in Belgium. Universities in Belgium are for free. It is the state who pays your entrance fee. It is the state who pays your scholarships, and which is fair, which is fine, because the taxes in Belgium is huge. 50% of your salary goes to tax, which is fine, because people say, okay, if it is used for health sector, if it is used for education, if it is used for our children, why not? But the perverse aspect of consequence of this democratization is that parents think that everyone can go to university. So they don't look anymore to the talents of their children. They look as, my kid has to go to university, even if he is not capable of university studies. So what you create is actually a devaluation of your degree, because you have a massive influx of people who are not on the right spot. So, and because of the finance system in Belgium, where universities are paid by each student who graduate, of course, these universities wants everyone to pass, and the quality goes down. And that's what's happening. So what is the compensation that happens now is that people get a degree of law and they follow additional masters and additional doctorates just to have the same quality or the same standard of a degree 20 years ago. The devaluation and inflation of influx into the universities and the schools of university colleges makes it very attractive because you are a democratic country. But on the other hand, you see that the competition with the outside world, especially with the Commonwealth countries, where you have real competition to be in the big universities, becomes more and more difficult. From an Indian perspective, yeah, you see already the internal competition between elite universities, elite schools, and the rest. And it's unfortunate that the Indian government is only investing in elite. Very unfortunate. I've seen so many IITs, MITs, IIBs, but the other sectors of education is totally underdeveloped in India, and that's a big danger for the unskilled people. And when they all get diplomas of all kind of schools and universities that I've seen, but which are not actually quality inspected, which are not having the same standard as these elite universities, you end up in a divisioned society. And that is happening more and more in India. I've seen it so many countries, especially luckily in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka is quite moderated, but is also growing. But if you go to the north of India, I've seen so many devastating consequences of these policies.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraint, this would be the last question.
Okay.
This is from Dr. Venkat Lakshmi. Could you give us some suggestions to initiate collaboration with foreign universities?
Well, I think the best way is always, if you want to gain result, you have to make friends. If you, that's how it works, huh? And it starts with your international office, the one who is responsible, or the team, which makes friends, and it starts with introduction by email or by people that you know in these countries. Sometimes your alumni are working in these countries. I don't know how your alumni work is done, Dr. Janice. If that is a highly elaborated list of people that you can contact.
We have alumni working in different countries. They are very supportive. Even I see Dr. Nelson is there. He's very supportive in forming the consortium also. This question comes from some other college.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
So I think that is very important to use your alumni system. That's first of all. Second, to use what we call in Louvain ambassadors. And to work, not diplomatic ambassadors of the state, but ambassadors in an academic way, which are doing research, which are writing articles, and with other colleagues from other universities or schools or so on, and to get introduction through them into the universities and so on. The third aspect is government and companies. There are lots of multinational companies surrounding in Mangalore or in Bangalore or in Kochi or in whatever, and you should get approached to them because they have contacts with universities in their base in Louvain, in Brussels, in Berlin, in London, and these are things that we should tap on it. And the fourth, but I think it's more challenging in India, is to use the government network. Government cultural foundations and so on, like Rabindranath Tagore institutes, like the ICCR cultural fundings, and through culture you can enter also into the academic field. And these are the traditional ways of looking into it. But mainly now you should go into the digital world using Facebook, Twitter, and so on to get contact. And don't be shy, because the European way is the digital way. Don't be shy to directly address to the Vice Chancellor of Louvain. He will love it. He will love it, because that's the new way of approaching into academic diplomacy, not by sending letters and stamps on it and so on. This is classical way of getting approaches to other universities, but more and more is the digital way that you have to use for this kind of things.
Thank you, sir. A warm good evening to all. The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation of goodness. I, Ms. Jennifer Carlo, Assistant Professor, Department of MSc Counseling, School of Social Work, Roshnilaya, express our appreciation for the goodness of knowledge shared in abundance by Professor Prakash Goossens on the topic Globalization and Academic Diplomacy to all the teaching and educationist fraternity on this day 4 of 7 days International Virtual Faculty Developmental Program on Global Vision for Academic Excellence. I extend a heartfelt gratitude to you, sir. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invite and for widening our understanding. The examples you shared were eye-opener to understand the globalization and understanding academic diplomacy and its impact. Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to Thank you. I'm grateful to Dr. Juliet CJ, Principal, Dr. Janice Mary, Vice Principal, Ms. Evelyn Benes, Secretary, School of Social Work, Roshnilaya, Mangalore, and the organizing committee for organizing this intellectual 7 days international webinar. Thank you, dear delegates across the globe, for your enriching participation. I hope you have been able to meet your expectations from this webinar and have received elevated information for your career growth and excellence in building a scholastic, empowered society. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening. Stay safe until we meet again for tomorrow's session.
I wish you all the best in India with this COVID situation, because as you know, we are following it up very closely. I was planning to come to Kerala this summertime in July, but unfortunately, because of the COVID situation, I postponed my visit to November. But I'm sure in November it will still be a situation which is not favorable, but I hope we will proceed. In Europe, the COVID situation is also not yet normalized. So there is still the 4th wave, which will come in September probably, because it's a holiday time here now, July, August, and people are traveling. And so we are worried that this will create, especially the Delta variant, which comes from India. And we should be very cautious. So I would urge you also to keep all the measures that your government and the school is taking for to have a safe, healthy environment, to keep this very much close to your heart, because it's important. So many people died of COVID also in Europe, and I've seen also in India. So we should really be cautious. And I pray especially for all the diseased people, and I pray also for all who are in hospitals and in severe stress situation because of COVID. Sister Janice, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful seminars of 1 week on the School of Social Work.
Thanks a lot, sir. Look forward to see you.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
So should we have private chat now?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
The website is being recorded, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
This is being recorded, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So probably. Yeah.
So thank you all.
I'm to Sebastian.
So we have one more Dr. Prakash here.
Janice, ma'am,
Yes.
am I audible?
Yeah. No,
Hello.
it has been a good interaction in the sense that though globalization and sustainable development, I mean, my favorite subject, it gives a larger perspective of where we stand and what we need to catch up, a
Yes.
lot of things. And I'm sure we can work out with people like Dr. Prakash Goossens, who is well read and has a worldwide view of what's happening around. I think that kind of view is what we need to develop.
Yes.
And it's possible.
Janice, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Hello. Can I
Yes.
speak to Janice, ma'am?
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. You were talking about collaboration among the students relating to sustainable goals, right?
Yes. Yes.
I am basically a teacher who is handling undergraduate and postgraduate economics. I'm basically from Chennai, Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
And we teach a paper called Urban Economics where we talk about more of sustainable development. Is there any prospects on our side where we can also be a part of your collaboration?
Yes, yes, you are most welcome. Right
Okay.
now, we are forming the speakers where, like, you provide a platform for the students from different continent to, share their views, their experience, or they have an online exposure into the reality.
Okay,
Are
ma'am.
most welcome.
Okay, so can I have your mail ID or contact details, ma'am, so that I can?
Yes. Yeah.
How will you share it with me, ma'am, or I'll just give my mail?
I'll send it to you. We have the list of participants. I'll
Okay,
send
ma'am. I'm Sarita Raman, ma'am. I'm Sarita Raman from Loyola College, Chennai, ma'am.
Loyola College, Chennai. Yes.
I belong to Department of Economics, ma'am.
Yes. I
Thank
can,
you.
Ma'am.
I can visit your college also.
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't get you.
I can come to your college.
Yes, ma'am, because this is, as a faculty, I'm more interested because I'm teaching that particular paper, Urban Economics, where we talk more on sustainable development. So I'm very interested after I heard from you those words. That's why I asked you. This is my private initiative with reference to this.
Ma'am.
Admini here just want to say a hello to Sebastian.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Where are you now, Sebastian? In Roshni? Or? I missed the first half of your introduction.
Ma'am, can you please share your number?
Yes, definitely. My contact is there with the organizers, the email contact.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Sure.
And even Sandra Lobo has my number.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Stay in touch, Sebastian. So where are you now, Sebastian?
Yeah. Roshni, ma'am. Roshni.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And I haven't met Janice Mary before, so eager to meet you soon.
Yes,
Ma'am.
Actually, our organizing committee is very much interested in, to collaborate with all the participants in the future.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you. Very, very encouraging.
Ma'am.
Yes.
This is Basiru Jalo speaking. I am also, actually, I'm not a faculty member. I'm just a student here, a Gambian student who is studying in India. So I'm in my final year right now. I also asked a question, but because of time constraint, it was not able to be answered. So I was just asking, like, can be posted in the general page or something, at least so that, because I really want to hear about such insights, looking at the way he was answering the other topics, I think, if he can respond to my message, I think it will be really helpful. So I was just wondering whether if I type it in the general Telegram group there, will it be able to reach him? Can I get something from that? I mean, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your voice is breaking.
I think it's because of my network. What I was saying is, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was saying I am not a faculty member actually. I am just a student, a Gambian student who is studying in India here. So I'm in my final year. I asked a question in the chat box, but because of time constraint, it was not able to be answered. So looking at the session, the way it was going, sir was like his idea, the way he was responding to the messages, like I really would love to get his insight according to his point of view regarding my question. So I was asking, like, if I send it in the general Telegram page, will I be able to get that from him? That's just what I was asking. Did you get that, ma'am?
Dr. Kiran Prasad? Dr. Kiran Prasad? Are you there? Dr. Kiran Prasad?
Meanwhile, before leaving, just want to say a hi to Prakash Terian as well. This is Padmini here, Prakash. I was your colleague a while ago, don't know if you remember.